I think every parent relates to so much to food and food correlation with growth and achievements. Just to give you a few figures, 2.5 million searches on Google just for milestone development. That's how much moms Google, right? That's like our 4 a.m. friend after Kidsstoppress. But really, 2.4 million searches for that, and 4.6 million searches for fussy eaters. So totally calls for this panel. 3.4 million searches for child attention deficit disorder, 2.4 million searches for classroom performance, and what's the common link to each one of these? Well, it's food. Okay, so I am going to go straight to the man who knows all of it, which is Dr. Talwai. Okay, what is the reason for these kind of searches? What do you think? Like, are we a different, like, are moms a different species, or like, are we just obsessed? Why are we so obsessed with food? And what validates all of these numbers?
So that's a real tough question. So I'd like to pass it on to the audience. How many of you have never ever forced your child to eat? Please raise your hands. So on a very sober, serious note, I think it's because we evaluate development in terms of growth. And there's this confusion between what is child growth and what is child development. What we actually need is a child to be smarter, intelligent, more successful in life, making more money, getting more degrees or whatever. But at that age, what we focus on is putting all the food inside the baby. And I think that is what parents are focused on. And it's also probably reinforced through the generations. So if not the mom, then it's a mom-in-law or the grandmom who wants the child to be eating all the time. And you know, the way we look at it, we say, "Aapka bacha healthy nahi lag raha hai." So you know what a healthy means? Healthy means he has to be really, really. So this is the preconceived notion of a healthy baby, and it's the amount of food that the child eats. But it's such a pity because somebody was just asking me outside when we were chatting, what is the right amount of food that a baby needs to eat? And my boss, Dr. Amdekar, the great pediatrician, all of you in this city must have heard about Dr. Amdekar, says that when a baby is born, a baby is 1 day old. How do you know what is enough food for the baby? So the baby cries, the mother breastfeeds the baby. When the baby's tummy is full, the baby stops breastfeeding. Whoever measures how many ounces the baby actually had from the breast. And it's very fine and it goes on fine. So why do you think a baby who's so intelligent of day 1 of life, on the first month of life, to have as much milk as the baby needs, suddenly becomes so stupid that you decide the baby's schedule when the baby becomes 1 year old? And I think all the woes around feeding start because we think the baby is stupid not to know how much to eat, and we are the smart, intelligent ones who are going to force this kid on a diet from this specialist or that pediatrician, and the baby has to eat so much. So I think leave it to the kids.
Okay. Rushina, you've been working with moms and kids both, and 2 of your own. And you've made food a lot of fun. And I'd like to understand that, is this a recent phenomenon, or are we just it never happened with us? So as parents, we always question, like, it never happened to us. Why is it happening now? Do you have a question like that?
I think what's happening is, when we were probably younger, you had a smaller circle of people telling you how a child should be eating, how a child should be behaving. Like earlier speakers have said, aspirations have grown, the options for kids to do stuff have grown. When your kids are doing that much more activity, they obviously need that much more fuel. There is some stuff which is learned behavior. So if you look at both my kids, my son grew up eating everything because when he was a baby, I didn't know much. There was no social media, there was no, so I would just mash up whatever was cooked at home for dinner and feed it to him even before he got teeth. So he grew up eating all the textures and all the colors. By the time my daughter was born, I came to Bombay and I was going to a pediatrician who said, okay, pehle dalia ka pani, fir moong dal khichdi, fir something else. So she's still a one-dimensional eater. She doesn't like eating texture. She wants simple food, simple flavors, lots of butter and ghee. So I think there is a phase till about 10 years of age when kids are learning things. Now that's where you can go wrong. There are times if you force feed a child, it might turn into a kid who doesn't want to eat because you're force feeding him. Also, kids are very manipulative, so they know when, how to press your buttons by not eating because they know that you'll spend 1 hour feeding them then. So there's a lot of things that you have to be careful of. Make them sit at the table, make them eat. Let them be exposed to the kitchen when you're cooking. Let them learn about food from the cooking perspective because eventually they have to fend for themselves. I think that's one thing we don't do. We keep our kids outside the kitchen, which is where Kids in the Kitchen came in. I realized that, at some point in life, my kids would have to fend for themselves. And we don't give, especially our boys,
Yes, absolutely.
we don't teach our boys how to cook, And now, increasingly, because of this whole thing of not letting your girls, make your girls equal to your boys, so even girls are not getting into the kitchen to learn. And when I say cooking, I don't mean master chef, I don't mean junior master chef, I just mean basic 20 meals that they can cook through their lives to fend for themselves. Dal, bhat, roti, sabzi, things like that.
Sai, you've obviously authored books and you've written so much about it. Basis what Rushina said, basis what Dr. Dalwai said, do you think we're overcomplicating food? Like, wasn't it wasn't so difficult, right? Like, do you question as a, as a parent that, hey, why can't you just eat this? Like, why is it so difficult now?
As a mother of 3 children, I definitely think we are. Yeah, I have 3. I think one of the problems we face now is that, we're too busy prettifying our food and buying fluorescent melamine crockery for our children to eat out of with, Peppa Pig on it or whatever, and arranging for just the right YouTube videos for them to watch while they're eating. And in the process, what we're doing is, like Rushina said, we're disengaging children from food. And this does not just mean eating, dinner at the table, but like she said, also involvement in the kitchen, but also taking them to the market. What we do now is, abhi bachche school mein hai, let's quickly do a market dash and pick up the vegetables and fruits. Or they've gone down to play, let me finish the cooking shanti se. That kind of thing. But in the process, what we're doing is, we are depriving children of the experience of touching and feeling and seeing fruit and vegetable and fresh produce or even meat for that matter. And what's happening therefore is they don't know where the food is coming from. They therefore do not understand the value of the food and therefore they don't, give you a very smooth time eating it. So I think we need to take a step back to maybe 2 decades ago and just do away with the fluorescent cutlery. I mean, most of us grew up eating in steel thalis and katoris and we grew up fine, right? And most of us accompanied our parents to the market. And I think if we can make going to the vegetable market a fun activity, we can start growing vegetables in our own, little windowsills or backyards if you're lucky enough. I think that will, demystify eating for most of us.
Kids somewhere have lost gratitude for food, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Just like what you said. Amrita, you on the other hand have made food into magic, right? You've kind of woven that magic into food by, making it really creative. Is food, like creating that magical food, really time consuming? Or is it sneaking it in without the fuss?
I laughed when you finally directed your question to me because what I'm going to say is completely different from what my 3 very esteemed panelists are saying. Not for any other reason, but I have a 10-year-old son. And the reason I'm a chef today is because of this so-called fussy eater. Now, my whole thing is a child has a certain requirement for growing. And you have to fulfill that by feeding them. Now, that's where magic of a mother comes in play. You make the child food that he or she will love. And you will watch that they will eat. Today, I don't struggle with Agastya because I make him food which he loves. So I don't have to force him. he finishes his plate. I don't even need to give him fancy plates, although I do really believe in presentation also, because I believe in presentation for adults. I think we all take that little effort now, thanks to Instagram, thanks to all the exposure that we have on social media. We want our food to look a little beautiful. But why only for adults? Why not for children too?
Dr. Dalwai, I'd like to emphasize that this obsession for the mother starts at a much later stage where in the first 2 years you're obviously not measuring how much, but 95% of the brain development actually happens at that point. So what is it that parents can do at that point in time that can shape what the child is going to eat, drink, or have, or actually, like I said, that grow up to be an individual with great potential?
So let me tell you something that may be very, very surprising. The first 2 years of life, which we think are the most important for brain development, now we know it's actually the 9 months of pregnancy in which the child's brain is really being laid down. And it's not just the nutrients during pregnancy, but the nutrients periconceptionally that matter the most. Because just imagine, it's from zero, no neurons at conception. The time when the baby is born at 9 months, you have 150 to 200 billion neurons in the brain. Now this is the hardware of your brain. You do not add any neurons after birth. In fact, you lose neurons after birth. After birth, what happens is, because of the stimulation around you, the neurons connect to each other. So they start learning, the child starts learning because of the connection between neurons, which are called synapses. So it's a stimulation after birth that really determines how good the software is going to be.
Thank you so much. That was a great concluding statement. Thank you so much.